Humans have accomplished remarkable things while sitting down. Like my man here that's trying to get double paralyzed. Or how about this grandpa that built his own jet engine on the back of a sled? I mean, humans are so... Oh, fuck! Anyway, my recent injury is gonna prevent me from doing any fun on my feet, so I got this whitewater kayak. And like your mom, this kayak's been well loved and filled with debris, but it's December now in Colorado, and I want to turn this thing into a ski yak. But before I start building, I figure I should tell you why I'm doing all this. Collection on August 21st, 2023, 6:50 p.m. Complete ACL tear, high grade, posterolateral corner injury, high grade partial or complete tear/avulsion of the popliteal tendon. The what? At the femoral insertion. Okay. Probable small wristberg rip of the lateral meniscus. Effectively what that means is I tore my ACL again. That means 3 weeks of crutches, 6 weeks locked out in a brace, and another 9 months until I can get back to playing sports. Oh, boo-hoo. Well, I refuse to spend another winter sitting on my ass. Instead, I'm gonna rip on my ass. Or, I bet you will. You know, like this guy. Now that looks sick. But there's one thing missing. This guy can't carve worth a shit. I mean, what's he gonna do if he wants to turn left or right? Just kinda dig his paddle into the ground? No. That's not good enough. That guy's not ready to die. Me neither. There are a couple problems. I've quite literally never sat in a whitewater kayak. In fact, I didn't even sit in this one before I bought it, which was ill-advised, but fortunately I was able to adjust it to fit my height. Oh, yeah. Now I'm really crammed in there, but what you can't see is I have my knees shoved up against these pads that allow you to really throw your weight around and manipulate the kayak from side to side. This is the motion that will, in theory, allow me to carve in the snow. So the bottom of the kayak is actually quite flat, and there's this little tiny ridge on the side that might get some traction. But upon studying further, all of the snow kayaking I could find was basically completely out of control and relied on these snowbanks to get any sense of direction going on. So the only other option would be to straight line it in a 3-way train with your boys. And now that they're paralyzed, they can ski in one of these kind of deals. It really is incredible, but notice how he shifts his center of mass over top of the edge of the ski, and this is what allows him to carve. For my first design attempt, I thought I could do something somewhat similar using this old snowboard. All modern skis and snowboards actually have a metal edge that allows you to carve into hard-packed snow, giving you the ability to turn. The geometry of this didn't really work, and I couldn't accomplish it with my complete lack of engineering. I also want to avoid ruining this kayak with any extra holes, so I'm gonna try to attach the skis only using existing attachment points. So I decided to attach skis to the side of the kayak to give me those edges. And on my kayak, I'd love to have some sort of oh shit stick in order to brake in case things really got out of hand. There is part of my story though that we haven't gotten to yet. So earlier I told you it is a 9-month recovery after getting your ACL repaired. Well, I tore my second ACL just 9 months and 11 days later. Yeah. So here's the deal. With my first ACL tear, it was playing ultimate frisbee and a severe hyperextension where my knee bent backwards like nobody's business. With that, there was some pretty bad swelling, bone bruising, and sprains in various other ligaments. And of course, excruciating pain to go along with it. And following this first surgery, I was doing my physical therapy religiously, twice a day, 7 days a week. And the second I got cleared to play, I was ready to jump in. So our ultimate team had an annual tournament in Salt Lake City. I wouldn't be playing in this tournament, but I came to support the team, and I was at least gonna join in for some warm-ups. And there, doing these warm-ups at a tournament I wasn't even going to be playing in, I tore my second ACL. This time around, it wasn't nearly as painful physically. That being said, it was emotionally devastating. it's really tough to explain the just roller coaster of feelings I was going through that day. I was in shock. I mean, it was pure disbelief. You know, this was the last thing I ever thought would happen, especially considering I wasn't even playing at a competitive level. And so as our team started the games, I tried to pull my teary-eyed head out of my ass and start to support them again. Playing basketball, playing frisbee, snowboarding, I mean, these are the things that bring me joy. These are the things that allow me to de-stress, that allow me to feel like the best version of myself. And the thought of having that stripped away for yet another 9 months was just hard to grapple with. And when faced with these circumstances, you're kind of left with no other choice but to confront the adversity and consciously choose to make the most out of this time. So at this point, I think I had a pretty good idea of how I was going to attach these skis to the side of the kayak. So on the front, I need 2 strong L brackets that can attach the skis to the side of the kayak at that right angle. Then on the back, I'm going to attach an aluminum square pole that's going to run across where those handles were. Then coming down at a right angle off of either side, I'll have 2 more supports, and those supports will attach to a bracket that will be bolted directly to the skis. Then to attach the square aluminum pipe onto the kayak without making any new holes, I decided I'd use some paracord to lash it onto those existing handles. You'd be shocked just how strong some paracord is. Alright, so best I could do here is find these T-brackets that I can kind of hammer out into right angles to attach the skis up front. You know, I find a lot of parallels between building things and the process of my ACL recovery. In both cases, the process always just takes longer than you could ever imagine. Eventually, certain things become tedious, they become boring, and incredibly frustrating. But you make that choice to persevere, to keep working on it, to keep putting the damn hours in. And with new problems come new solutions. For example, I found these little black rubber spacers that are going to allow me to better fasten the brackets onto the side. And I've developed excruciating back pain from constantly bending over doing this type of dumb shit. So, to fix that, I developed a painkiller addiction. Nah, it didn't. That's a lie. But my back does hurt pretty bad as we speak. And if you made it this far, please subscribe. I got a lot more cool builds and adventures on the way. You know, I've noticed a major change in myself after these 2 injuries. Maybe it's aging, maybe it's trauma, but either way, more than ever, I've realized just how vulnerable we are as humans. You know, the time I first felt this was just about a month ago when I was winterizing our swamp cooler. My knee could bend, but is still really weak, and it required getting up on a ladder and on and off of the roof. And before I got down from the roof, I sat there for a minute and just envisioned myself falling about 8 feet off that ladder onto my arm, compound fracture, and sitting there bleeding. And all I could do was just kind of chuckle. I mean, I had to get down one way or the other, and I was home alone. But this was bizarre to me. I've been climbing around on rooftops since I was literally a toddler. I mean, there's pictures of me as like a baby on a friend of ours' rooftop. No joke. And I've never once felt uncomfortable, uncertain of myself, or afraid in that kind of situation. But now I did, and that was different. God, I can't do anything. I'm like an inch off. But I finally finished cutting the pieces for that back bracket and made my first mistake. How's I that far off? You tell me, huh? Let's try this. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's interesting how these injuries have fundamentally changed how I perceive myself in this world. Up until this point, I was fearless playing sports. I had no consideration for my body, for my knees, for my joints. And now I am fully aware with just how quickly all of that can change in an instant. I mean, doing nothing abnormal, nothing inherently risky, and bada bing, bada boom, you know? You know, I counted it up, and in this project alone, I've drilled 52 holes through both these aluminum brackets and the metal in the skis themselves. And I gotta tell you, nothing has been more valuable than purchasing a high-quality stepped drill bit. It saves so much time letting you plow through material like this and not having to switch from one bit to another. Damn, do I love that thing. 3 hours later. So now I'm at the point that I've made both of the vertical side brackets that are going to connect from the horizontal crossbar down to the skis, adding stiffness to them on the back end. And one of the trickiest parts about this whole build has been getting these holes and measurements just right when I'm working with a, non-square object in that kayak. All things considered though, I was pretty pleased with how well my holes kind of lined up. I didn't have any misguided holes that I had to, completely redo at least. And so for each of these bolts, to keep it simple, I've just used some locking nuts on the other end, and I kept it with 1/4-inch bolts the whole way through. Though I am usually listening to some podcasts or, bumping some Lizzo or something. Oftentimes during these builds, I do get time and space to just kind of, think and ponder. And one thing I've recognized since these injuries is how it's fundamentally changed my view on the world, and really how I interact with it. I now recognize just, not only how fortunate I am to have a functional and capable meat vessel that lets me do fun shit like this, but also how vulnerable that meat vessel is. Like I was saying before, I never had these fears or these thoughts before, so it's different. But for those of you, the 5 or 6 that may have made it this far, you're probably wondering more specifically what my plan is with this damn ski yak. And my hope is to drag it up a 14er and send it down. And for those of you who don't live in Colorado, 14ers are basically 14,000 foot tall peaks that there are, I believe, over 50 of which in Colorado that are hiked and used for all sorts of recreational fun. But for perspective, usually to make your way up a 14er, you have to wake up 3 or 4 in the morning to start your hike so that you can get to the peak before the storms roll through in the afternoon. In addition, at 14,000 feet, you're dealing with half the oxygen that you have at sea level. So those last bits, not only are you climbing a significant amount of elevation, but you're doing it with half the oxygen, and I'm hoping to do it while dragging this God knows how much 50-pound plus kayak behind me. It's definitely a lofty goal for my weak, atrophied legs, but with the help of some buddies, I think we can get it done. But one last little modification here. I noticed those front brackets seem to be a little bendy, so I took some of the leftover L braces and decided to, drill some holes in them and attach them to that same point, just to give a little extra structural support for when I start to carve in this thing. Damn, ain't she a beaut? Well, I hope you subscribe and stick around for the next video.